journey of exchanging ideas with like-minded people around data quality, governance of data, structuring and cleaning thereof, and management of data is exciting. Research and development on the latest methodologies and technologies in the field of data analytics, augmented algorithms, machine learning, artificial intelligence from a quality data hub will take MIT CDO to the next levels.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Thank you all for still being here. I know it's the last day of the conference, but we have a really great presentation here. It's my pleasure to introduce Igo Bigger, who I have known virtually for a long time, but now I'll get to meet him in person here. And this is his last talk that he's doing for El Al, because he's got a new career that I'm sure he's going to tell us about a little bit as he goes into it. But he was recognized by CDO magazine as one of the leading thinkers in this area, and particularly because he has a combination of CDO and CTO in his title. Igo, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Hi, guys. It's very nice to see you. How many people do we have online? Peter?
67.
Wow. So I'm going to imagine I'm going to speak in front of 100 people now, right? So hello, everybody. Thank you very much for attending this session. It's called a data-driven CTO, and the powerful couple, and we all know that as chief data officers, one of the main challenges that we have is the IT. Whether we are part of the IT or not, I had the privilege of serving in both roles, chief information or chief technology officer and the chief data officer after being for 2 years as a chief data officer for El Al. I became the chief technology officer because the VP left. During the huge crisis of the COVID, I got a division with 40 people. Previously, it was 360. And I had to rebuild everything. Now we're 200 people. And I'm going to tell you about the journey that we went through and the power behind being serving in those two roles. A bit about my background. I'm not the topic here, but just as Mark yesterday mentioned, I had the privilege of serving many, many industries. So it started with telco and finance and some retail and the automobile all across Israel and some in the world. I used to live in New York working for the financial industry. And I also teach in Israel's universities, Technion, which is kind of the small version of MIT in Israel, Tel Aviv University. And I'm very proud to be the global ambassador for the state of Israel, in which we started the CDO certificate as part of Bar-Ilan University, and we already have 35 chief data officers in Israel, and I'm gathering this group, working closely with you guys in CDO Magazine and MIT CDOIQ, so thank you for that as well. El Al was my second chief data officer role. Before that, I was a chief data officer for Yes, which resembles some type of DirecTV or Dish, a television company, and I'm not going to talk about myself now. Let's talk about El Al. All right, so where do we start? As a chief technology officer, I had to kind of print out the enablement heat map. As technology As an IT, we need to enable, the technology enable the business desires. So I map pretty much everything with regards to whatever we do as a company and where we are, or where we stand in terms of technology. Now, as data leaders, we just do the same with the division, with different divisions, with the different business pillars. So I did the same in terms of the entire portfolio of the technologies of the company and, of course, the business processes. As you can see, according to the legend, basic is the red ones, the medium is the yellow ones, the good above the benchmark of the industry is green, and of course the blue, or the light blue here is market leaders. And as you can see, this is a market leader is something someone else defines, right? An external institution or whatever defines it. And we lead in two things in the industry. One is data analytics, where I had the privilege of leading it. And the second one is cybersecurity and physical security, by the way, as well, as an Israeli airline. The thing is, whenever you see this map, it tells you where you are right now and where do you want to aim for and what are the projects that are going to lead you there. And I'm going to walk you through the process of what we did in the past 2 years in order to get there. And of course, I'm going to cross it with everything that regards to data analytics along the way. So let's start with this that you all know very well. Usually, as chief data officers, we get stuck in the bottom here, where you want to implement our insights into the operational systems. This is where we have to have the willingness of the IT to implement it back, put it part of our processes. We came into a situation where in organization structures, we think about a CDO, chief data officer, more of IT-oriented. It's part of the CIO's office. He's the chief data officer, sometimes with some sort of dotted management with or hierarchy with the CMO, chief marketing officer. When I was a chief data officer for Yes, I was reporting to two people, the CIO and the CMO. And I was leading the data science and data analytics team, reporting to the CMO, and had all the data engineering field reporting to the CIO. If it's more business-oriented, it's mostly sometimes equivalent to the CIO. It's not a part of the management team. And the IT and business-oriented, what we did in El Al, and by the way, in the next job that I'm going to start next week, I'm going to be also the CIO or the CTO and the chief data officer, because it has to be a part of our strategy. It's not just a technology. Data is part of your strategic vision, such as technology and such as marketing and such as business development. This is why I insisted to be also the chief data officer of the next company that I'm going to. As an information technology division, the technological enabler of El Al, to promote a culture of cutting-edge information technology, you can read all about our vision, et cetera, but eventually it was structured this way. This is my division. Those are all the managers of my division. Those are the team leaders in gray, and light blue is the field managers, and the management team is dark blue, as you can see. And by the way, I'm very proud that half of my management team is ladies. It means that's a good part of my management team. And one of them is going to replace me, which I'm even more proud of that. I'm saying what you can see here is on the left side are the business partners. We changed the entire structure, such as the data. You know, in data, we sometimes had the data leaders and the data partners. So here we had IT partners, the business partners, and everything here is constructed by the divisions. We had the one, Lena, who leads the frequent flyer program systems, and we have Dan that holds the operation and security systems, et cetera, et cetera. So everybody, including myself, are pretty much working for the people here on the left side. Now put it back onto the data side. Look, on the right side, head of data analytics reporting directly to me. It's part of our business. It's not part of the IT. This is the IT system on the left side, and that's the network and infrastructure in the middle. The cybersecurity, my CISO is reporting to me. The office of the CIO on the right, and what you can see is the data analytics is a huge part of our strategic look and feel, and they're working very closely with the business partners. And the business partners are reporting on a monthly base, on a weekly base, on the progress on the data analytics program. It's part of the portfolio. You can't finish a project without data implemented in it, and they know it, because it's not part of their field. It's a huge pillar of its own. In terms of data, the main thing that happened, and Mark mentioned it yesterday, was to make sure that everything is being gathered in real time and being exported to the relevant person in the right time. El Al, as you know, is an airline. Most people are not sitting in front of desktops. So everything, we chose Tableau because two things. First, it was the most comfortable thing for mobile, and the second thing for the self-service capabilities. By the way, when I was at TS, I chose Click. Next, maybe in the next place, it's going to be Power BI. I'm not vendor-oriented, I'm the need-oriented. And in this airline, the need was flexibility and self-development, and once again, the opportunity for people to walk with the data whenever they go, whether it's pilots, air crews, technicians, et cetera. So everything based was all around the mobile. Second, we consolidated. I got the division with 40 people and 521 systems. It's it's not really working good together. It's not a good combination. As part of the system reduction, I found out that I had 6 different systems for data integration. As you can imagine, it's not the smart thing to have, because every division took its own data integration. Of course, you faced it in Glaxo, but eventually, in GSK, but eventually, we consolidated everything to Talent. It made it a lot easier for us to control all of the data integration in terms of operational needs as well. I'm going to elaborate a bit about it afterwards. So real time, get it to the right people. And what you see, by the way, on the left side, the upper left side, is all of our pilots and their qualification. So that means it's an operational act. A pilot could not take a flight if it's going to head one of the red dots over there. Okay? It's something that's really operational. It's not something just for insights. It's an operational dashboard that they find out which pilots needs to do which qualification. Of course, it takes it from the operational system directly. I kind of initiated, I'll translate it. I initiated an excellence center with regards to talent. The knowledge base about talent in Israel wasn't that good enough, so we started it in El Al, and we are the excellence center of talent right now in Israel. And as you can see on the right side, IATA, the International Aviation Transportation Association, gave us the title of a data-driven airline, and this is what allowed me to change the color in the previous slide to light blue, because they saw the implication of this revolution on the people in El Al and outside. All right, so I took the map, the enablement heat map, and we decided to take over the digital transformation, but we had to kind of grasp it into one project. It started with 5 main platforms: the upgrading of the mobile application, changing all of the customer interactions. I had 13 different systems talking to our customers. And that means El Al, we're talking to you in 13 different systems, different languages, different look and feel. On the left side, you see 2 things. First, there's the website. It was SharePoint based on on-premises environment, and an agent portal that I don't want even to elaborate on that. I'm going to tell you about what happened with it afterwards. Indra booking engine, it's the internet booking engine that we had to make sure it allows self-service. For example, when you buy a ticket and you want to change something, whether it's the dates or destination or whatever, especially in the COVID time, you would not be able to do it at all in the website. No self-service at all. 6, 7, 8 months ago, if we would go to our website, there would no way to reissue a ticket in any other way. It has to be measurable, of course. To give you a small hint on the outcome, we're now standing on 25%. 25% of the reissuing of the tickets are done by digital. And of course, if you have a customer and you want to speak with him all across the channels, CRM was implemented only for our frequent flyer program. If you were a regular passenger trying to buy a ticket, nobody would know you. You just working on the Amadeus, the GDS, the Global Distribution System, and that's it. Of course, we had to have a full implementation, 100% of CRM across the board, and changing the IVRs and the telephony platforms. We thought we starting with 5 platforms. It ended up with 14. Let's talk a bit about what we did there. Of course, it started with the mobile app, and everything came out from the data. We understood what the customer wanted. We understood what they don't have. We had a roundtable, open discussion with some of our frequent flyer programs. Of course, we saw the benchmark. we were not good. We saw Deltas, we saw United, we saw Emirates, we saw Turkish. We saw all the different ones. We understand the capabilities. We understand what we can do right now. And we went over some quick wins along the way. For example, your status of points, the better seating maps, better changing abilities within the app. And once again, final results, all by numbers. Third of the sales on the digital platform went on to the mobile app, and it's keep on rising. Just measure the time, and this was all done by data analytics, that you see on the right side, the previous engine, and you see on the left side, the new engine, booking a flight to New York. The guy on the left can go to sleep when he finishes the reservation, while the guy on the right is still working on that. That's React Native application, and the one on the right is responsive. You actually see the website in your mobile, different look and feel, much worse performance. This all came out, once again, from the customers, and it had to be reflected in the things that we do. On the right side, you see the way we interacted, we informed the customer about changing in his seats. On the left side, you see the new look and feel. And of course, it has all different buttons to have some sort of options for him. Everything is measured by Adobe Analytics, gathered immediately in real time in order to see if someone gets stuck, so get into some actions that he can't proceed. And of course, we have an assistant, an online assistant, to help him with it, with his process. Once again, everything adjusted to mobile, to desktop. And this is something that came out through COVID. For example, all the documents. How many of you have filled the documents before a flight in the recent 2 years, right? It has to come out as part of the program. Once again, scan your documents, put it upload, pre-approved, whether you're right or wrong. And it all came out, and this is something we learned along the way. The amount of projects that we did that weren't planned in the beginning of the year was something like 50%. Usually as an IT manager, you deal with 10, 15%. This was 50%. For example, El Al prior COVID changed or canceled 0.1% of its flight. Now it's 4 or 5%. By the way, in British, it's 15%. So cancellation of flights became something common. And that's crazy for us as passengers. But now, you don't want someone to call you whenever they cancel their flight. You want him to give, those are the options that are available for you, do it. So we had to find out whether we can have a digital platform that allows you to do it. So of course, the same people working on digital platforms, we don't have enough budget, we're gonna do this instead of that. 50% of what we did in 2021, 2022 was not planned in the beginning of the year. So agile methodology, same teams, different backlog. Changing the website, told you, SharePoint over on-premises was changed to Umbraco CMS. And as data people, you know that your ability, first of all, to change and to measure everything that you do in content management system as Umbraco is far easier than on the regular SharePoint. Besides the look and feel, it looks a lot better. Same thing here with children. Seating maps, everything, of course, is very flexible and comfortable. And everything about refunds and vouchers that we all came to realize and to know very well. Whenever you cancel a flight, take a refund, take a voucher. Everything was supported on digital. Agents portal, once again, we understood that 60% of our sales went to agents. This is why we kind of rebuilt everything, once again, on Umbraco, on Azure, in order to be more flexible and to have the same look and feel of the website. They're very happy with that, and we're very proud of that. Cargo had a huge implication of the year in terms of revenue, and we had to come out with digital platforms for cargo. It's a very, very old business. You call the agents, all right, I need to send a few cucumbers and tomatoes to Europe. What can I do? Okay, I'm going to save you some spots on El Al flight to Amsterdam. This was the way it went, and now 15% of the sales are doing via digital platforms. They go into the website. They see wherever they have an open option to send their cargo, and they just choose it and send it away. Call centers. Everything that happened now, because of this technology revolution, made us, first of all, understand the basics. When you have a CRM system and you have the Amadeus, which is the global distribution system, whenever you sell a ticket and everything, the first thing you need to do, and this is something we sometimes don't think about, you have 2 screens, okay, for the representatives. So my people always went to the to the field and understand the work of the person that's supposed to use those systems. Sometimes we as IT people, we see that we know better than everybody what we should be doing, and that's it. We just develop it. Here, we had to come out, be in the field, understand, listen to the calls, and those two screens, even though it's just two screens, made a whole new approach to the way they can give service to our customers. Forget about all the logos here. On the right side, you see real-time data injection all the time. All the reflection of what you saw in the digital transformation was reflected in real time via the CRM. And that means we knew exactly why people are calling us, and we immediately adjusted the backlog of the digital transformation, whether it's the website or the app. It was very important for us to see that it aligns, that wherever we have a new feature in the website, it's being reflected in the CRM codes that we see to the call center. We're using live person, a lot of Israeli technologies here to allow us to answer, of course, in the Facebook, Instagram, soon to be LinkedIn, and everything around it. When we go to a traditional industry, and I'm sure most of you are, or you were part of the traditional industries, one of the main challenges in transformation is not the technology, it's the people. Because they don't necessarily want this transformation. When we talked about paperless, it's not about just getting their iPads. It's about changing the way they think and changing the way the process is being handled in their brains before it's being handled in their iPads. So for example, I had the privilege of joining a C-check. C-check is when you have a full treatment of the airplane. You peel up pretty much everything. You build it, you rebuild it. You do it every 3 years, and you send it back to the air. So for example, if you have a scratch on the window, some person puts a stamp on that, that's a scratch. Somebody else listed it's a scratch on the window, needs to be replaced. Someone else stops it into a computer, and someone else archives it. So 4 people handle this scratch on the window. Of course, with iPad, it's not necessary anymore, but the main challenge here is to convince those 4 people that you just need one with an iPad. And that's a much challenging process rather than just implement the software on the iPad. I want to show you what happened here because we're very proud of that. We became the first airline in the world to have a full C-check of 737 Boeing and 787 Dreamliner Boeing. But look at the people. This is the more important part here. What is this? So once again, how did we do it? We wanted, first of all, the maintenance people, it's their project. They led it. We were enabling their desires. Only when the COVID struck us and the people left and they were renting on unpaid leave, etc., they understood, those 4 people, that they wanted to be one. Okay, so I know COVID, don't quote me on that even though it's on the record. I know COVID is a terrible thing for the airlines, but it had a lot of positive effects as well. We could not have made this revolution without the COVID. And I'm saying it because I know I was there before. We could not have the paperless project without COVID. So that's an opportunity. AI. As part of looking for increasing the efficiency, and all of our projects are divided into increased efficiency, increased revenue, reducing the risk, and withhold innovation. We had to find out ways to increase efficiency around the terminals. So first of all, we came out with internal apps that allows them to see all the relevant information with the gates, etc. But what you see on the right side is visual recognition of the turnaround management. This is one of our airplanes in Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. And you can see it visualizes and see all the items that are part of the turnaround management, because we want the airplane to be the least time on ground and the most time in the air. So it allowed us to bring one of the startups called Intellect to our portfolio, join our portfolio as part of Cockpit. I'm going to talk about Cockpit a bit about later. And it allows us to be much more efficient in our turnaround management. But eventually, it's not just about the technology here. It's about the opportunity to track and to see all of the different components in a turnaround management. Monday, who knows here Monday? All right. Monday is an Israeli company created to allow business users to be part of the processes as well, not just IT that are usually using, for like us, Jira or softwares that allows them to manage their projects, etc. Monday came out as a platform to be much more convenient to the business customers as well. And it allowed us to do a lot more things than just project management. As you can see, air crews training, IT assignments, layoff, even the layoff program. And I, unfortunately, had to lay off 150 people in 2020, sorry. Everything was managed by Monday because it had to be a platform that everybody in the organization is using, so it can be something that the business users don't understand. But maybe it's better for you. We were chosen as the use case of Monday for 2021. I'm very proud of it as well. I want to show you the most special thing that we did in Monday. Can you turn on the volume?
Bringing a new system has its challenges. I was very concerned, but I was amazed at how simple it was to implement Monday.com into flight training.
The biggest advantage of Monday.com is the ability for business divisions to create their own solutions.
Hi, my name is Itai Givon, and I'm a 787 captain.
My name is Ido Bigger. I'm the VP IT of El Al, the national airline of Israel.
And I've been flying for El Al for the past 18 years. And for the past 4 years, I was the training manager for all the pilots in the company.
One of the most interesting use cases that I faced was when Itai Givol came to me with a challenge.
And I told him, listen, we need something to manage the simulator training. We cannot go on like doing it with email and phone calls and WhatsApp. Between departments in the company, we are sending more than 500 pilots to do more than 10,000 hours of training to 40 different locations around the world. It was a broken system, basically. It was a big mess.
And he said, I can't really deal with today's situation, and I'm working with less people now, and I can't really make sure that I'm doing it the right way, and we're losing a lot of money because of that.
And Ido suggested that we use Monday.
When he saw Monday.com, he did something amazing with it.
We designed the main board of the simulator slots that together with the stations abroad, that they can see who's coming for training, so they can arrange hotel accommodation, transportation, etc. With the click of a button, we can send the plan for next month. Each station has a filtered view to see only the pilots who are arriving for training at their station. One of our insufficiencies was regarding the cancellation of the slots. Because we use so many training facilities, each one has a different cancellation policy, and we needed to rely on people's memory to remember when to cancel. So oftentimes we were paying fines for cancellation that were made too late because we had no visibility of the cancellation policy available. Now that we moved to Monday.com, we have automatic notification set up for each training facilities to know in advance when we need to cancel a slot in order not to pay the fee. So I estimate just by managing the cancellation policy, we managed to save about 300,000 euros a year. We set up a beautiful system using Monday.com for pilot training, and I hope other airlines will do the same. It
is a commercial for Monday.com, but it was about the business process behind it. Once again, just listening to the customer, understand the problems, see where you can really impact. And it's not about the technology, it's about Itai, the captain who took over this project and implemented it in his division. Once again, we have moved, all of you are aware of that. By the way, we have a lot more people on virtual now than physically here. This is what we had to go through for the entire company. Once again, all the branches around the world, all the stations around the world had to change their perception and the way they work. You can see it via the way they play the OneDrive that we're using, the Office, and of course the global standard that we implemented all across. I just can say that even when you choose a new location for our stations, the first thing we demand from the person who signs the contract is a very strong fiber, right? Unlike previous years that we ask it to be close to the gates, close to the operation side, no, you have to have a very strong internet, and then we can proceed and talk about other things as well. Just as an example, a crisis drill, every airline needs to do it once a year, training for a crash of an airplane. And everything here was managed, both on Teams. Audio codes is another technology that allowed us to record every talk that is made, every record that is made, and of course using Monday.com and Tableau on it to see in real time whatever happens, how many injuries, how many deaths, how many flights were affected by it, what is the situation with the crew. Everything was managed by Tableau. Centralized financial services from all around the world. We had to make it centralized. No more finance people all across the branches in the world. It has to be automated. Once again, Israeli technology called DocFlow implemented the screening of all the invoices shipped to the centralized financial services in Israel and being supported back in a financial invoice process that was automatically made. Once again, Monday was part of it as well, but just think of the process and everything that has to be measured afterwards. Once again, all the capabilities with trips and the way that people are using the airplanes and, of course, going abroad for the business trips. Everything had to be measured. And as you can see, part of the project of the travel advisory system was implemented it as absorbed to the data hub. We created something called a rapid BI methodology. We didn't have the time to build a data warehouse, okay? When I arrived to El Al, we had, as told you before, 520 systems, out of which maybe 60 were reflected in a data warehouse. All of them were reflected 24 hours, 48 hours after. Currently, we reduced the amount of systems to 390, out of which 180 are reflected in real time in the data warehouse. And that's amazing. That's really changed the perception of data because it's a rule. It's a base rule that every system, every new system that you want to implement has to be reflected in this data hub, in the semantic layer in real time. This is why it's part of you remember the division chart? The data people has to be part of each and every one of the projects that the business partners lead. This is the most powerful part of being able to be the chief technology and chief data officer. Data is part of the project. It's not something that comes afterwards. It's not something that someone thinks afterwards. It's part of the project. Once again, all the RPAs and mobile capabilities, everything is being reflected across the board. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a whole field, and I don't know if I'm privileged to say, but El Al is the most attacked airline in the world in terms of in terms of website and digital platforms. We are being attacked over 1 million times a day, and we had to come out with a strategic way of thinking, and once again, in a very, very strong cooperation with our security agencies, we have built a portfolio that allows us to see in real-time data, everything that happens around us. And this is the combination of IT Operations Center and Security Operations Center in one room. It's a secure place where you find yourself 24/7 with 3 people investigating each and every one of those attacks and understanding each and every one of the acts that happens in the IT. Not all the time it's connected, but every time there is some sort of engagement between the two. Of course, if there's a problem in IT, you can find it maybe in the operational layers, and if you have a problem in the security, you for sure will see some problems in the IT layers. So this approach allowed us to do something pretty phenomenal that I had to present in Dubai, by the way, in one of the air shows. And this is my management team. You can see on the left. We are 10 VPs in the management. On the left side with the T-shirt is the CEO. By the way, there is a female CEO now. She's amazing. And this CEO moved to Nashville, and he takes me with him. So he's going to remain my boss. But anyways, this is the way they go through cybersecurity. What they see now is the way to practice their skills and to understand in a much more efficient way the dangers in phishing or in dangers in changing a few or using the same emails, for example. One of the biggest problems is that employees in their organization are using the same emails in other websites, and they even sometimes use the same password in other websites, and makes a lot of problems. So this is like a nice way of practicing it with the management. The last thing I want to show you is our ability to have Israeli technologies gathered for the airline industry, whether it's for adjustment to the airlines or built for the airline as well. And we created Cockpit, which is a subsidiary of El Al. I was the chairman of Cockpit. And we are working very closely with the academy on the right side here that you see, and the agencies on the left side. And it allows us to invest in startups and technologies. Think about it on the data side, invest in really relevant technologies. Use as the beta site for those technologies, see whether they work or not, and of course, provide it as services, and of course, enjoy the equity afterwards. We're very happy to say that out of the 12 investment that we did, 2 came out to be big exits afterwards, but it's very relatively small in terms of the investment. And I think it's a very common thing for big companies to do, to have their ventures, their innovation ventures, and to invest in those companies. So if anybody of you wants to hear more about what we did in Cockpit, you're more than welcome to ask. And that's it. And whenever you fly to Israel, of course, do it with El Al, and give me a call. Maybe I can still help you, even though next week I will actually move here to the States and going to join an energy company, because if you can beat them, join them. And I'm going to live in Nashville, and I'm going to be very happy to keep in touch with all of you. So any questions? We have some on the internet. All right.
Anybody in here? Okay. Michael?
Michael the man.
I've got a really simple, practical question. I look at everything you did, and I wonder, did you sleep a single hour in the last year, or did you work 24 hours a day? Because that's an impressive set of accomplishments.
Thank you very much. It was 2 years, and I didn't sleep much. But thank you, Michael.
Another question here.
Hi, Ido. Thanks for the great presentation. I think as many CIOs, you're hitting on all these different fronts, and really compelling to see the digital transformation there. Recognizing that on all these different fronts, the connectivity of data between those becomes challenging when you're trying to innovate in those different spaces. And I'm also curious how you balance that, because as you called out cybersecurity, you're right in the middle of protecting data information, both in the digital and in the physical real sense. So can you share a little bit more how you innovate in those places while drawing the connection between them from data and keeping it secure?
Great question. The main challenge when you come to a traditional industry is the fact that they ask you why. Why should I connect the maintenance data to the service data, to the terminal data, and to the satisfaction of the customer data? And the only way that I could do it is just to combine those and show him the result. So for example, whenever you have a problem with a chair in one of the C-checks, when you have this data and you compare it to the on-time performance on the terminal of this specific airline, and then you show the satisfaction of the customer afterwards, you just put it together in a very quick and dirty way. You convince him that it's something worthwhile, not investing even, it's just cooperating. I think the main challenge that I faced in the last 2 years in terms of importance of things, importance of tasks, prioritization, is the fact that it was just the same teams, but we were working on backlogs. So pretty much each and every one of the system had every 3 weeks a version, and we just played with the backlog all the time. So I think In cybersecurity, for example, there were no issues in terms of understanding what's more important and what's less. But in terms of innovation and understanding where to combine relevant data sources, et cetera, and where to invest in the digital transformation, it was really not a changing target, but a changing backlog. And this was the way I confronted with it. There is no way to plan ahead 2023 in an airline now.
Great job on the story that you can tell here in this digital transformation.
Thank you.
Particularly the thought leadership around continuous intelligence and real-time use of your data, which is where I believe the industry is heading for sure. We're there. So kudos to you for leading the industry in that. With that challenge, however, you mentioned you had 390 systems, 190 of which go in real time in your data hub. So what's left? What's the gap? What was the hard, I guess, things left that you could complete that you wish you could have if you were to continue your tenure?
First of all, it's 390 systems, and out of which 180 are being reflected in real time, so I have a lot more to accomplish there. Second, I don't know a project of a website that ends. There is all the time, more and more versions, more and more needs, and of course the customers demand more and more, and that's good. It's a very good thing. Second, in a place like an airline, there is always a place to increase the efficiency. There is always a place to become better. There's always a place when you can do things in a different way or in a better way. So I'm sure that my replacer will do a great job with finding these old challenges and fix them. So I'm not worried about that. They won't sit and just think about what they need to do because I finished everything before.
You know, we've got one from the internet I want to pull in here, and then I'll turn it over to some more in the room. Did you pursue decommissioning of the 5 or 6 business data warehouses, or just integration with Talend?
Amazing question. It wasn't even a data warehouse, and it wasn't even a data mart. Usually what they did is just have a few reports on the operational system. And I wrote an article on that. It's called the Rapid BI methodology. And the thing that we did is understand that the most important part is the semantic layer and the product. So for example, not the previous CEO, the one before him, I just asked him a question, what are the main 6 things that you want to see in the morning? He just drew it on a paper on one of his flights. And there was no way to bring it in one piece in a data warehouse methodology, et cetera. So we came out with the understanding of how the product should look like. And within 2 weeks, I presented to him in Tableau, real-time Tableau. He didn't know behind the scenes there were 4 Excels and 5 tables that came out from a physical queries that has no meaning in terms of defined processes. As soon as he liked it and he started using it, of course he had a few comments and said, no, change this, change that. I don't care, it's just an Excel behind the scenes, just something. And in like 3, 4 versions of playing around, he got to his final decision. So in like a month and a half, he had his live product, quick and dirty behind the scenes, but he got what he wanted. Now, here was the main version for me. It was to take it to a semantic layer and see, okay, he here wants to see the tails, but I have the tails already from there. And here he wanted to see the destinations, I have it there as well. To consolidate it into one semantic layer, even though it was views, only views, and not processes defining tables in data warehouse. So the semantic layer was the thing that I constructed the most. This was the most important part, to make sure the semantic layers stays the same. It's not being disrupted. Now, whenever somebody asks for a new data product, for example, he wants a new system to be implemented, it was reflected in real time. By the way, we used CDC, change data capture, not to distract the operational system. And it was reflected in a very raw way in our environment. Now, we adjusted it by those views into the layer, and then it was reflected in the product. So the product was delivered in a matter of weeks. And then all the rapid changes that was on sometimes, the customer doesn't really know what they want until they perceive it. So it doesn't matter to design it for weeks and then to develop it for weeks, and then he received it for the first time. And he has his comments. We need to understand that even in the IT part, there is no such thing as Change request. Of course there's change request. It's part of the process. He doesn't really know what he wants until he gets the product, and then he understands what's wrong with it. So get to the product as fast as possible, and then change the behind the scenes in the next versions. This was the whole thing around it.
That was here. Very impressive story.
Thank you.
The way what you've done and how you talk about that, bravo. I have one question. We don't often see a combination of CTO and Chief Data Office. You put the data some kind of in the core, what you have done, in a very interesting way. Do you think that this combination of CTO and CDO will be more frequent in other businesses? And under which circumstance this really have a chance to have such an acceleration in data transformation as you have shown us?
What's your name?
Alice.
Alice. I was waiting for this question for this entire 3 days, because this was the whole purpose of the presentation. I think more and more, and we talked about it yesterday, I think more and more chief data officers, because usually when I look at CIOs, they come from ERP, they come from systems, they come from maybe digital. I don't know many CIOs and CTOs that came from data. And I think that's the biggest trend that's going to happen, because when I got the job, there was pretty much nothing that I didn't know at all, because I was residing on top of everything. I was residing on top of the ERP, CRM, digital. Data is all around there. When you come from ERP, you don't know nothing about systems. When you come from digital, you don't know nothing about SAP or stuff. But now when you come from data, you see everything. Of course, everybody of them knows a lot better of his or hers area than me, but it was much more comfortable for me to do it. And once again, I wrote something about it as well. And I really hope that in the upcoming years, more and more CIOs will come from data. And you ask me which organization will probably absorb it. When data is part of the culture, and the person itself is dominant enough to convince the top management that he or she could lead it to the next step. The owner of El Al, the previous one, because it was changed also, when the CIO left 2 years ago, she called me and said, I want you to do with the IT division what you did with the data part, with the data division. So good luck with that. And I think this combination will allow us to have more and more chief data officers becoming CTO and CIOs. Great question. Thank you.
I'll do one more from the internet here. What do you think are the main differences between the airline-specific data challenges at El Al and another airline which is not under so many cyber attacks?
Just focus. Focus. If you have an airline that has no cybersecurity issues, you have more time and attention to focus on other things. I think. Yes. But cybersecurity is not at all just El Al's side. Airlines, cybersecurity, aviation cybersecurity is something very big, and everybody is dealing with that. We had a very big agreement with Boeing now to build this strategy together. It's a worldwide, it's a global challenge, and El Al was just in the tip of it.
Congratulations, Ido. It's like really impressive what you have achieved during the last couple of years. As I was listening to you, I was thinking that once you have data and technology so embedded in the operation, it has to be harder to measure the impact that you're doing. Of course, you're making a greater impact because you're transforming the actual company. But as you're transforming the company, you don't have something to measure the results, the actual results now, to what them could have been without that transformation. So I guess that's a challenge. How did you tackle that?
First of all, you're talking about the baseline. So for example, if you see improvements, how do you know what to compare it with? So a lot of the things, we didn't have the benchmark before, so we used the benchmark, the external benchmark. We saw what's the percentage in other airlines and what happens in other airlines, okay? So it's a very good question. The second one, once you have some sort of a benchmark, of some sort of a implication of a process, the way to measure it is not by the IT people. I'll give you an example. And I'll give it from the previous role that I had at Yes Television. There was a problem with technicians that came to the houses to change the set-top box and do the things. And the technician that went to the house found out that the problem was in something that he can't really do, a problem with the television, problem with whatever. It sounds like a small issue, but it was like 17 or 18% of the calls of the technician. Just imagine 18% of the technicians are going to the houses and can have nothing to do. Now, I didn't have a benchmark from the data itself, from the systems, but I had my CFO. So I asked him, how much does it cost to send a technician to someone's house? And he said, I don't know, $150, $200. He gave the number. So I just multiplied it by the number of cases. And then you have the percentage afterwards to see what was the reduction after the data analytics. And, data is not the solver of the issue. It's just a projector of the phenomena. But the operational acts, and by the way, this is the huge couple here, the CIO then changed the operational act. He inserted more and more questions to the call center representative. He changed some indications in the CRM to see this is a customer that calls a lot. He always wants technicians to come to his house. Pay attention, all right? Rethink before you send a technician to him or to her. And getting all those together reduced it from 18% to something like 11%, and this 7% had a number. Okay, and this number came from the CFO. So this was my benchmark in terms of the increased efficiency.
Okay, you ready for it?
You told me it's going to be a hard one.
Yeah. Okay, so if we think from a legacy perspective, and when you went through your organizational chart examples, historically we've had a CIO, and there's data centers and network infrastructure and telephone systems and all of this like heavy hardware that's managed by that organization. Certainly if we fast forward to today, and even through the great examples that you shared on the way you delivered the digital transformation, a lot of it was through partnerships, software as a service, cloud deployments, all it sits somewhere else, and a lot of the work happens elsewhere. I'm just curious your thoughts on, if you fast forward, let's see, we're sitting in 2022, so let's say 2025, what's your thought on dropping the CTO from your title and basically recognizing that data is actually the core asset of the organization, and all of those functions of putting the pieces together of how you capture data and how you analyze it is really a sub-function under data. So actually inverting the organizational model that we see today, where a lot of times we'll see a CIO and then there's a CDO under that person to kind of manage the data piece. What's your thought on flipping that, and what would be the challenges of that, where actually it's the chief data officer, and one of the functions of the chief data officer is manage how the data is captured from operational systems and how it's executed on the decision systems?
Thank you for the question. I think in a few years, more and more companies and more technology divisions will deal only with integration. Because I always look for best-of-breed solutions and integrate them to my portfolio. And less in-house development, which fits a lot what you just said. Whether it's going to be the chief data officer or the future chief data officer that's going to manage the integration of those systems and managing the data centers that will still reside, I'm not sure. By the way, the name of chief information officer is not that far away from chief data officer. But in terms of chief technology, and this is why I insisted on technology, cybersecurity, I don't think it's going to be a measure under the responsibility of chief data officer. I don't think everything around network and infrastructure would get along with chief data officer leading that. For sure, IT systems has more and more to do with data. So with regard to your question, that would be a nice aspiration. I don't think a chief data officer would manage the chief information officer, but for sure, like you said, Alice, more and more chief data officers will be part of, it will be the same person as the chief technology officer. That's how I see it.
Oh, thank you. I actually have the luxury to have a very similar setup. I work for NYU. So I'm very curious to learn from you as you take on this role, like the combined CTO and the CDO role, how you structure the team. So like I also came from data background. And then when I took over the application team and also like a project management process team, so I designed a structure. So now 3 years down the road, I'm really thinking, what's the best way to organize this huge talent pool and then do what you just mentioned, like data is everything, it's everywhere, it's in the application, in the process, and reports, analytics. So you have a chart, actually.
Thank you for the question. I don't know what's the right question. I will tell you what we did. And as mentioned before, I think data became a huge part of the technology portfolio because it was part of the process. When you put the data and analytics on the same floor as the IT systems, they fully understand, the people, that it's a strategy pillar. And the same way you take care of your CRM, and the same care you take care of your SAP, and your other system, operational system, etc., you need to take care of the data part of it, and it's embedded in you. It becomes inherited, and it's part of the process. Okay, so the way I structured it was this way, with the IT systems and the business partners as part of it. They're going to take care of the divisions, whether it's data, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's network, whether it's ERP systems. They're going to take care of the division that they're working with, the people that you see on the left side. We have the R&D centers, the development team, and the integration team that you see, the long list of team managers. And you have the infrastructure and network. Cybersecurity is a different pillar, but data analytics and their integration team, design team, data science team, they are part of it. So just imagine in my management team, the head of data analytics and head of IT systems, even though she manages 110 people and he manages 20, it's the same importance, okay? And I think eventually, when it becomes like one unified approach, she knows, Tammy in this case, that she won't finish a project without data embedded both in the end results and as part of the process on the operational side. So if you ask me how to structure it the right way so it will get both sides here, I would put the head of data analytics and the head of IT systems that are reporting to you on the same floor. I hope it answered. Yes.
Yeah, so that's how I structure the team now, right? So what I'm learning, the kind of the challenge that having this structure is, as we push very hard, right, to bring everything together. So the application team, they now have to start to have more and more data requirement. And so, but the data team, as they still need to handle, right, some traditional data side of work or reporting work, then it becoming a mismatch. As you see, right, your app team is much bigger than your data team. So then how, like, what's your vision? Maybe you have not done yet. I'm just curious to see what's your vision.
It's more important, the data products or the part of the application
No, not so what's important. I think both are important. Yes. It's just how do you enable your app team more to be able to leverage the data, the technology,
Great
the
question.
integration.
It's a lot of changing their minds. They're not focusing on data because of me. They're focusing on data because it makes their customers' life a lot easier. And once, there's one question, and you know what, you just raised it, so there's one question I ask my people all the time. In which way El Al is better today than it was yesterday because of things that we did? If you can't answer this question, don't come to work. Okay? You're working every day. You're coming to the office. You're working from home every day. In which way El Al is better today than it was yesterday? Now, if the answer is understanding the business more and getting a full overview of something that just happened, or a new feature in the app, you will understand exactly what's better today than yesterday. By the way, it's a good way of thinking, because for sure tomorrow you're going to come to a better company than yesterday, if you have a good answer. And I think eventually when the app people and the IT system people will understand the data behind everything that they do, they will for sure answer this question, in which way this company is better tomorrow than today.
I want to thank you for a great session here. This has been really interesting to talk.